Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. That's what you've probably heard a billion times before. But people say the phrase like it's gospel. I bet if you were to ask someone where they heard this ludicrous idea from, their answer would be, I have absolutely no idea. So who decided it's the most important meal of the day? And why? What if I told you that breakfast isn't quite the holy grail of meals it's all cracked up to be? You see what I did there with the wordplay and the imagery on screen? I amuse myself sometimes. The idea that breakfast is vital for a good start to the day dates back to the early 20th century, promoted heavily by, surprise surprise, cereal companies who wanted to sell more cereal. Ever since then, breakfast has enjoyed a reputation as the go-getter jumpstart our bodies supposedly need after a night's fast. Eat breakfast, we're told, and you'll be healthier, happier, and more successful. It sounds good, right? Well, it's probably because it sounds a bit too good to be true. Recent studies suggest that the importance of breakfast may be somewhat over-exaggerated. What really matters is the overall quality and timing of the meals throughout the day. So if you wake up and have a hearty full English breakfast with all the trimmings, it makes no difference if you eat it at the crack of dawn or at 1 PM in the afternoon after you've crawled out of bed after a wild night out on the town. As long as you eat it at some point in the day, it all goes down the same process and adds to that already growing waistline of yours. Yeah, I knew I never trusted that feathery bastard. One of the main arguments for the breakfast is king mentality is that it supposedly helps with weight management. Apparently. To what logic? I couldn't tell you. The theory goes that if you eat a big breakfast, you'll eat less throughout the day. But let's be real, folks. Have you ever had a large breakfast and then decided you're gonna snack anyway? You ain't doing yourself much favours here. Breakfast might curb your hunger in the morning, but it doesn't have magical powers to suppress cravings later in the day. Unless you eat some pixie dust, but then you probably have bigger problems on your hands, so go see a doctor. In fact, some research suggests that skipping breakfast altogether might actually help some people reduce their daily calorie intake. Which makes perfect sense. A longer fast from the food the night before and skipping breakfast has actually been found to have a wealth of health benefits. In addition, it's not normal to have a full square meal every breakfast, as in today's messed up society of caffeine-fueled panic and anxiety breakfast, as it's now just a quick thing, and the idea that it's the most important meal of the day is quite clearly nonsensical. Most people grab a quick bite or drink to eat, like a croissant or a shot of vodka if you're feeling down or you'll finish. Then you just dash out the door to make sure that you're not late again for this week's workday. This hardly qualifies as the most important meal of the day, in my opinion. If you're simply shoveling food into your mouth because you've been told it's important, you can't believe everything you hear, kids. The idea of intermittent fasting challenges the idea that breakfast is essential, and instead promotes the idea that when you eat is far less important than how much you eat and what you eat. Why force feed yourself in the morning if you're simply not hungry? There's nothing wrong with waiting until your stomach starts to rumble and then actually enjoying the food you're eating. I like cereal as much as the next guy, and you know what? Might even start having a bowl for lunch. Yeah, that's going to send a real shockwave to the cereal industry, isn't it? Cocoa Pops for dinner? What am I, a psychopath? Many people assume that any breakfast is better than no breakfast. But this is where things can get a little bit dicey. I think we can all agree that eating a stack of pancakes or a full English breakfast every morning is a speedrun way to early diabetes and a heart attack in a 7-Eleven 20 years down the line. But the grey area is around the other staple breakfast items we eat, and if they would even be considered a quality breakfast. As a matter of fact, a lot of common breakfast foods, think sugary cereals, pastries and processed juices, are more dessert than meal. Starting your day with a sugar rush might give you a quick boost of energy, but it's likely to lead to a mid-morning crash, leaving you feeling sluggish and hungry. How can this be the most important meal if it's fundamentally incredibly unhealthy for you? Just as an example, in the UK a number of years ago, many companies adopted the use of a traffic light system on packaging of products. This gave consumers a cursory view of the levels of fat, sugars, carbohydrates, and other stuff in the food that they were buying. Having this was seen as incredibly consumer friendly and was even supported by the Department of Health, who approved of this method of making this a far more transparent way of us understanding what we're buying and making smart choices because of it. When looking at sugar, a green light would be a low amount of sugar, amber and red being increasingly less healthy and rammed to the rafters with even more sugar. So, what did many well-known brands decide to do? Well, many of which who originally adopted the idea quickly changed their mind when they realised that this might, rightly so, reveal how unhealthy many of these foods actually were. With reds across the board, this included companies such as Jordan's, Kellogg's and Nestle. What is even more sinister is not only are many of these cereal companies quickly inserting themselves as a staple meal in a busy work day, but their tactics of getting off the shelves and into people's homes is terrifying. So yeah, let's look at these well-known breakfast brands. They all share something in common, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Cereals that are colourful, have child-friendly cartoon characters on them, and are normally placed on the shelf at such a height where kids are going to badger their parents to buy a box or 10. This is a matter of starting them young and getting them hooked to keep them coming back. Wait, are we talking about drugs or breakfast cereal? Sounds eerily familiar. So yeah, anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I feel like my life has been a lie. Tony the Tiger was never serving me a healthy breakfast, nor was he my dad. Truly gutted.